Valley Center City Council meeting for May 3rd, 2022 is now in session. Roll call.
Mayor Cicerillo,
Here.
Councilmember Stam,
Here.
Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Bass,
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Colbert.
Here.
Please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the men and women that lead this city. I pray, Lord God, for your wisdom, for your discernment as they make decisions that lead us into a better future together. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, council item 5, approval of the agenda.
Take a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6A, the city council meeting minutes of April 19th. That's the right date, 2022.
Move to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. All righty. Next item is presentations and proclamations. We have one of each. First, we have a proclamation for Law Enforcement Memorial Day that I will read. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of Valley Center play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Valley Center, Kansas. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that their members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the police department of Valley Center has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency, which unceasingly provides a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Lou Cicerillo, Mayor, call upon all citizens of Valley Center and upon all patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 11th through 17th, 2022 as Police Week with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our people may join in commemorating police officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to the responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to the communities and, in doing so, have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Valley Center, Kansas, to observe May 15th, 2022 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of duty. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Valley Center to be affixed. Just a couple words. We all know how important our police department and as well as our fire department. We're about to see yet another, just another example of what our police officers do in this town. We have 4 from ours and 1 from our neighboring city. So just real shortly, 2? There's 2? Oh, no. Okay. Oh, okay. There. Okay. See, you guys got to change uniforms now. You know, I just counted the amount of black shirts I saw. All right. Next item. Get on the end. Anyhow, what I'm trying to get to is let's give him a round of applause. All right, moving on. Item B, presentation to Sergeant J.C. Kirk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The presenter tonight will be the Park City Police Chief, Phil Boston. I'd like to introduce him to you now, and he has something to read here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, council members, I'd like to present an award this evening to Sergeant J.C. Kirk. And I have something to read here. On February 28th of 2022 at about 10:03 p.m., Park City Police were dispatched to the Quick Trip to check on a report of a suicidal person. The man had reportedly told an employee that he wanted to kill himself and showed them some cuts on his forearm. The man then left the area and the Park City officers began to search for him. Officers from the Keachai and Valley Center Police Departments offered to assist in the search, including Sergeant J.C. Kirk. Sergeant Kirk spotted the man walking on I-135 north of 61st Street. Park City Police Officer Jordan Whitfield arrived soon thereafter. By the time the officers caught up with the man, he was sitting on the railing on the bridge over the Chisholm Creek. Sergeant Kirk tried talking and establishing communication with the man, who was dangling his feet over the edge of the bridge and sitting on the railing, rocking back and forth and slapping his hands against his head. Sergeant Kirk kept talking with the man while Officer Whitfield moved into a position behind the man. Both officers were coordinating their actions and were able to grab the man and pull him off the railing and safely to the ground, where he was restrained. The man attempted to hurt himself by hitting his head on the concrete, but the officers prevented him from doing any more harm to himself. The man was taken by ambulance to a Wichita hospital for psychiatric and medical treatment. The Park City Police Department policy for the life-saving award states that the following criteria must be met. The actions of any member of this department whose action significantly contributed to the saving of or prolonging of a life of another by actions which are beyond the scope of duties normally performed by members of this department. Our policy also gives the Chief of Police the authority to award the life-saving medal to members of other departments. There's no question that the actions of Officer Whitfield and Sergeant Kirk that evening either saved the man's life or prevented, at the very least, severe harm to himself, which would have resulted if he jumped off the bridge to the rocky surface, which is about 50 feet below. It's also refreshing to know that police officers from our two neighboring communities were able to function as a cohesive team to help a person who was having a mental health crisis. You know, we often rely on each other as neighbors, and it's great that this is just a good example of one of many situations where we constantly work together. So it's my pleasure to present Sergeant Kirk the Life-Saving Award.
Yeah, I'm gonna come up, but I'm not gonna, I don't want my head just in between the two, so. Well, that would work out well. I just have to lean forward.
If you all come on up to, you know, come on, you came, you all know you're gonna get it now.
Well, our guys should have known, I'm not sure.
Okay, you know now.
All right, we're coming to the point of the meeting where we have the public forum. At this time, we allow people to speak to an item that is not on the agenda. We do have one person, Justin Downing, who would like to speak on the quiet zones. Just for the record, even though we have it, state your name and address.
Yes, sir. Justin Downing, 415 West 3rd. Good evening. I spoke during the last city council meeting on this issue as well. I continued my information gathering, though. I had wanted to speak to an expert on quiet zones because I understood there to be some confusion within the community about quiet zones, whether they're effective, ineffective, how they work, et cetera. So I went ahead and I called the assistant city manager for the city of Shawnee in Kansas and had a lengthy conversation with her about the issue because they did a quiet zone a few years ago and are in the process of expanding that quiet zone. I started off by asking her some questions regarding, did it work? Did it actually achieve the goal that they set out to achieve when they did it? And the response I got back from her was absolutely yes. It did achieve the result that they were looking for. So according to the city of Shawnee, the quiet zone does work. It did achieve their goals. I then asked if there was any buyer's remorse, for lack of a better way of putting it. In other words, was there anybody within the community who felt like it was not worth the effort regardless of the outcome? And she said there was some criticism about the amount of money that was spent, but it was few and far between. As far as the people who were actually impacted by the issue, they believe that it was money well spent for the most part, because I understood there to be concern on the city council and also within the community about the dollar amount because it's quite sizable. But they seem to think in Shawnee that it was worth the money that they spent for it. So then I started talking about with them some of the roadblocks that they run into with regards to setting up the quiet zone, more specifically working with the railroad. Because I understand that the PEC is in the process of trying to meet with the railroad. I'd gotten some information about that. And they'd been trying for some time to meet with the railroad. So I wanted to see from the city of Shawnee, did they run into the same kinds of problems? Was the railroad being obstructionist towards the quiet zone? And the answer is yes, they were obstructionist. And as far as working with the city of Shawnee, they didn't work with the city of Shawnee at all. So based on my conversation, there was more to it, but just to keep it short, based on everything that I gathered from the city of Shawnee, trying to meet with the railroad, the PEC trying to set up a meeting with them to discuss the issue with them, total waste of time. Frankly speaking, I would suggest to them to just give up and don't even try because they're not going to work with you. The city of Shawnee told me that when they sent their notice of intent to the railroad to let them know that they were going to do the quiet zone, the railroad sent them a nasty letter back saying, you can't do this, we don't support this, yada, yada, yada. The city of Shawnee, to their credit, though, they just persevered and went ahead and did it, regardless of what the railroad said. And they conveyed to me that you do not need the railroad's permission to do it. You don't need their authorization to do it. You don't need to get on bended knee to the railroad and get them to approve anything. You just do it. You send a letter of notice to the FRA, Kansas Department of Transportation, the railroad, Amtrak, if applicable, and you just go ahead and do it. So as far as I'm concerned, I think what the city council needs to do at this point is just decide whether to do it or not do it. And if you're going to do it, just send your letters of notice and have at it. As far as my opinion on the matter, I support doing the quiet zone for any number of really good reasons. I think the city of Valley Center has been allowing the railroad to kind of set the tone of this thing. And I think that the city needs to take that power back and just go ahead and do it, or again, not do it if the city decides not to.
Okay. Wonderful. I appreciate it. But I'm not sure you've really read what has to be done in our city to get that done. We can't just go replace railroad crossings. If we could probably build the bordered ones, but ours are going to require new crossings because there are streets that cannot handle the border,
Yes.
the middle road. And we also have to do we don't have to go to 93rd, but we have to go all the way down to 61st, if I'm not mistaken. So we can't, unless we do that all as one large project, and I think I'm not sure what the last cost on that was $5 or $6 million. It's irrelevant if we can't do it all at once. But the biggest problem is ours, there are different options for quiet zones, but because of the widths of some of our streets, our only option is to do double gates. And there's no way we could do that without their approval. So that's their property. That would be like, your neighbor saying, I think I'd like to build a shed on your front yard. You can't do that. And so I thoroughly appreciate what you said. And you've actually made my understanding of a couple things a little better. So I do appreciate it. And yes, it's still not, it's still not something that's getting blown off. I mean, we clearly want to see this done. But because of the, like I said, the options that we are available to us, we have to have them involved. So it wouldn't, if we just did one, they won't, they've got to put up the signs. They're the ones that have to tell the train engineers that this is a quiet zone. So I think that the city of Shawnee had to have some input from the railroad in order to do that.
The way they described that to me, because again, I did have a lengthy conversation with them about that, is you start the process and they have to comply with the process because it's federal regulatory at that point. Again, it's not the railroad that sets the tone of that thing. It's federal regulatory.
Right. Well,
and in some cases, they had to call Senator Moran or Senator Marshall to get them to actually push the FRA to actually get some things moving. They did run into some stumbling blocks. They told me from the time that they decided to do it to the time of completion was about 2 to 3 years. It takes a lot of time. And I'm not here to push you to do it, really. What I'm here to do is just to give you that information, to let you know that the city of Shawnee told me that they're open for questions. If you folks have any questions, they're very welcome to you calling them and going through the various details. And I just wanted to make sure that we're not wasting any more time trying to communicate too much with the railroad because they're clearly not going to work with us on this.
No, we knew that. Yeah. So, but I appreciate it. And I just wanted to make sure you understood the depth of our project too, because you've been very good about it. The information you've brought has been very useful and I thoroughly appreciate, I should just say me. So you've brought back some very good information for us. And I thank you very much for that as well.
So sure thing. And I appreciate your consideration on that issue.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Stop.
Well, there are rules here, but I guess I can make an exception in this case. Yes, absolutely.
Al Hodgson, 531 West 3rd. In regards to the railroad, if you get through to the right channels, you'll find out, it's okay, that the railroad is working on eliminating a lot of traffic coming through Valley Center and going east. So within another year or so, they won't have near the railroad traffic here in town. And I understand what the gentleman's saying. As some of you know, I've been involved in this for a number of years because I probably live closer to the railroad tracks than anybody here.
What do you mean? They stop at your house for lunch?
Well,
Because they don't even have to get out. You just check. There you go, guys. See ya.
But one of my favorite questions when I was on the council, I used to ask people, when you moved to Valley Center, did you not notice railroad tracks?
No. Thank you, sir. I love that man. And I miss him up here. Trust me, I said it to him a dozen times. Okay, old business. Item A, ordinance 1375-22, second reading of acceptance of land from Sedgwick County. I don't think anybody needs to get up and, we all know what this is all about, so we'll just cut a few minutes off the clock here and I'll ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve for second reading ordinance 1375-22 to annex a portion of North Seneca Street.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Councilmember Anderson,
I just wanted for clarification, this is that small strip of,
400 and,
I do just want to clarify what it is, so we're not.
Yes, this is that small section along Seneca Street, about 330 foot in length, about was it 30 foot wide. It's basically the east part of the ditch and the roadway on Seneca Street, kind of by those two houses just north of Ford Street that are on the west side of the road. Did I confuse everybody enough on that one?
yeah, that's the other reason I was like, yeah.
So it's just a small sliver over by the TIF district. There you go.
Thank you. That was all.
All righty.
You asked for it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. New business item A, the 2021 financial audit.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With us tonight, we have Sean Gordon from Gordon CPA. He's going to go over the fiscal year 21 city audit, and then we'll stay in for any questions.
Good evening, everyone. As Barry said, my name is Sean Gordon with Gordon CPA. I'll go through the bound copy of the audit report that you have in front of you, kind of section by section, explain what you're looking at. Feel free to stop me along the way if you have any questions. So we'll start with pages 1 and 2. This is called the Independent Auditor's Report. This section is a little bit different than what you've seen over the past few years. There was a reorganization done by the state. So the opinion paragraph is now mentioned first. So the third paragraph down, you'll see an italicized heading called Unmodified Opinion on the Regulatory Basis of Accounting. That pretty much means that the highest and cleanest opinion that we could issue the state, issue the city and the library for that matter. We did issue the city and the library for the year end 12/31/2021. So that reflects very well on the financial and internal control management of the city for that time period. Flipping forward to page 3, this is called the summary statement. I'm sorry, page 4. This is called the summary statement of receipts, expenditures, and unencumbered cash. Here you'll see in the left-hand column all of the funds of the city, and then beginning cash, receipts, expenditures, and ending cash. You can see that overall cash increased by about $1.4 million at the end of 12/31 compared to 12/31/2020. You'll see there as well that ending cash of the city and the library combined is just short of $12 million on hand. The next section forward is pages 5 through 11. This is the notes to the financial statements. This section is mostly the same as what you've seen over the past few years. Here we discuss information on the city's accounting policies, long-term debt information, involvement in the CAPERS retirement programs, among many other items. And as I said before, this is about the same as what you've seen over the past few years. And then the final section in that bound copy in front of you is pages 12 through 40. This large section is just more detailed breakouts of those funds that you saw on page 4. These pages have a comparison to the prior year, which was 2020, so you can see how each fund operated or performed compared to 2020. And then you'll also see a comparison to how each fund performed compared to the budget that was adopted for 2021. Each fund was under budget on the expenditure side for 12/31/2021 calendar year. So again, it reflects very well on the financial management of the city in the budget process. And then also there was a separate piece of paper that you should have seen that had one audit recommendation on it. If you have any questions on that audit recommendation, please let me know. We had a good audit this year with Barry and Matt and everybody else involved in the finances of the city and the audit process. So we want to thank them for another good audit working with us. So any questions, please let me know on that.
Questions, council? Anybody have questions? We have a motion to receive and file.
Motion to accept and file the audit report of the 2021 finances.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff, Barry, your guys, everybody. This is, I know it isn't just the accounting guys, it's everybody. You guys all work hard at that. We know it and appreciate it. So thank you very much. Okay. Item B, small track plat, final approval, Valley Creek Estates.
Good evening, everyone. Before you this evening is final approval for the small tract plat. This is on property located northwest of the intersection of Main and Sheridan. This property is owned by Mr. Jim Gensel, and the plan is to divide this into 2 blocks consisting of 5 lots. I will reference the staff report as well as a copy of the plating document itself. This has been approved by the city's Planning and Zoning Board as well as reviewed by the city staff review team. On the north side will be Block A, lots 1, 2, and 3. And then on the south side will be Block B, lots 1 and 2. With us this evening, we do have Phil Meyer that's representing Mr. Gensel as his agent. He's with Boffman Company. And so if you have any questions of him, I would invite you to ask those questions of him or myself. I'll stand for any questions as well. Again, this was reviewed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. And once this is approved by City Council, this will be filed with the County Register of Deeds office. And the plan is for Block A, lots 1 and 2, for single-family homes to be built on each of those lots. And then in Lot 3, a multifamily residential development. That will, of course, trigger a site plan review through the Planning and Zoning Board before we issue building permits for that. In conjunction with the northern area in Block A, we'll be reviewing a rezoning ordinance after this item, and then Block B will remain commercial with some intended commercial uses as well. Stand for any questions.
Have we gotten anywhere with the abandonment of that?
No.
Siding?
Nope.
Okay. Because I know that was one of the things that was really preventing him from really getting to work on that the way he wanted to.
Yes, so he's just moving forward and working around that right of way.
Okay. It's the only question I have.
Okay.
Council? Motion?
I move to approve Valley Creek Estates 4th edition small tract final plat.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Item C, ordinance 1377-22, rezoning of property located northwest of Main Street and Sheridan Avenue.
All right, so tonight we have the first reading for this rezoning ordinance. Again, this will now apply to what will be referred to now as Block A, lots 1 through 3. Block A, lot 1 and 2 is to be rezoned to R1B, which is a single-family residential district, and then lot 3 to be rezoned to R3, which is multifamily. Again, this is the first reading for this rezoning ordinance. It has been approved by the city's Planning and Zoning Board. What will happen again, once the rezoning is approved, work can move forward on the single-family homes, but before the multifamily development can move forward, again, that will be required to go through the site plan review process through the Planning and Zoning Board. So no construction will take place. The intent of Mr. Gensel right now is to create patio or build patio homes similar to the area, the multifamily area directly to the north of this area. So looking very sympathetic architecturally.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
You actually already answered my question.
I aim to please.
Because you know I'm not a fan of multifamily residents. So.
In this area, it does make sense as this is a
extension of that one.
Right,
Yeah.
no,
it's
that was-
yes. I do understand your point, though. Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Stam.
I also like to compliment you because I read in the minutes where Mr. Meyer complimented you on how well you were to work with and everything. So I want to commend you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Stam. Thank you.
All right. Council, motion?
Motion for approval for first reading ordinance 1377-22, which rezones property from C2 to R1 BR3.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Oh. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-1.
Thank you.
All right. Item D, approval of RFP for mill and overlay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In keeping with moving toward a streets rehabilitation strategy, I'm pleased to bring before you a request for proposal for a 2-inch mill and overlay repair to approximately 42,890 square feet or approximately 1.9 miles of street here in Valley Center. There are a list of streets on here, and if Barry would do me a favor, I did add a little map on there to show up. Scroll down to the end there. This mill and overlay, the cost for this would be coming out of the system improvement line in the streets budget. And staff has already started looking at possible streets for next year. Possibly sealing of streets we have done in the past few years. Question?
Questions from council? Councilmember Gregory.
I got confused on what streets we're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
You've got Meadow from Fieldstone to Parkway, correct?
Yes.
And interurban to Fieldstone on Meadow. But on the map, Fieldstone is also indicated, but it's not indicated in your memo.
Oh, I don't have it in the memo. I do have it in the RFP. I apologize.
Okay, but Fieldstone will be included.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's Fieldstone from Meadow to Golf. I apologize. That was an error on my part. It is in the RFP.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And it is kind of confusing because that little section from interurban up to the other Meadow actually runs up, goes up around there, and Fieldstone, that's where Fieldstone actually starts.
Right.
So it is confusing sometimes, that little section right there.
Councilmember Colbert.
Yeah, I only have one question.
Yes,
What's the life expectancy on this repair?
Usually 6 to 10 years, depending on what type of traffic, what type of use.
That'd be the same as the one you did Southwind, correct?
No.
No, that'd be different.
Southwind was a slurry seal. That was a seal.
Okay, that's what I
It's
wanted.
actually milling off 2 inches of the existing asphalt, laying down another 2 inches of fresh, new hot mix asphalt.
That's what I wanted to
And
make
packing.
sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gregory, and I apologize if you.
I'm sorry.
Take it out.
I just wondered why you're waiting so long from bid submit or proposal submittal till you open them.
Well, so we were looking at different streets and we were investigating different strategies that were possibly for a possible alternative to the milling over there that might have been a less expensive option. And we actually made a couple trips, myself and our infrastructure manager, Ron Ekstrom. We even made a trip to Leavenworth to look at one of these options. And once we actually got to walk on it, look at it, we made this, we came together and decided that that probably wasn't the best strategy for these streets. So yes, it is a little late in the year and that's why.
Councilmember Anderson.
So what we're going to do is similar to what we did to Meridian a few
Yes.
years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a long-term plan that has streets that are prioritized?
Well, like I said, we kind of looking at primaries and secondaries first and work on those collector streets and then work our way out after that into residential
So I
streets.
assume this is kind of a fluid, you guys evaluate it every year. Is there anything that we can have put on our website and app to let citizens have the information with us having to not have to go through you every time to get information back to them? Is there something where we can point them to? If they ask us when my street's going to get redone or anything like that, do we have anything like that out? Or is it something that we kind of keep internal?
Well, we can certainly work on that. I mean, sometimes it is a best guess, but we can certainly work on putting something out there with the understanding that that will be essentially a living document. Simply, sometimes we have there's only so much you can do with your budget. So we desire to do this many streets and mill them, and then maybe the next year it comes time to reseal some of them that we've done. So we'd have to take part of that budget and give up some of the streets to mill and overlay to reseal streets so we
Okay.
can preserve them.
And that was it. Thank you.
And yes, kind of expand on that. It's absolutely wonderful idea to, have more information out, to the public, since we do have tremendous amount of opportunity on all of our social media platforms with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and maybe Rodney and Mr. Ron Ekstrom can go out there and do a TikTok or something, about the streets. And so we'll get creative. We have a lot of creative folks on. It could get a lot of views. We have a lot of interesting perspectives of trying to reach audience more, and it's a great idea that we should have that on our website underneath the Streets program. If you kind of see and kind of look at what we've done in the past couple years with Main Street, with Sheridan, with Fifth, now this area, we're kind of focusing around the school corridors, the traffic of a lot of folks travel, to drop their kids off to school. If you've noticed kind of what we've been doing. So right now we've been really focusing kind of a lot on the west side of Meridian and trying to kind of get all those streets into a good, really programmed timing for 10 years or some of these will be even more so than that if they're properly sealed and conditioned to handle traffic. You're not having a ton of semis and all those things on a lot of the streets that we've done already. And so as we continue to kind of wrap up this area, kind of, to the west of Meridian, to the north of Main Street, including Main, we'll start kind of going by Abilene and, starting to go down Colby and those areas as well as we kind of, continue on our program. But yes, we should have more information out to the public. Make sure you go and download our app. Encourage all your constituents to download the app. So then, when we are in these areas, we'll send push notifications to folks to let them know, hey, there's going to be a mill and overlay happening in your area. Make sure that you're looking out and using your caution. So, thank you.
Councilmember Stam.
I want to tag on to Council Anderson about letting people know. Does the city or the contractor go out and put door hangers like a couple days before we start them, let them know not to park on the street?
Well, we haven't done that yet, but we can certainly do that this
I
year.
would put that in the contract for the contractor to do it. Let them notify, just so they can, 2 days notice, even a day, but that's something that.
That's a great idea,
that-
sir.
Okay.
That's a fantastic idea. Thank you.
Anyone else? We have a motion.
Move to approve of the RFP for the mill and overlay of a portion of streets in Valley Center, Kansas.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Item E, approval of contract for public safety building roof. He's bringing the roof with him.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. If you remember back a couple of meetings ago, we approved a request for proposal for waterproofing services on the public safety building roof to essentially put a new roof on it. What we're looking at tonight is a fluid applied product. And I have Mr. Gail Melton here in the crowd with us to talk more specifically about his product. But essentially, if you recall in the RFP, there were 3 options. We're recommending option number 2, which is a polyurethane elastomeric fluid applied roof process. And that carries a 10-year labor and materials warranty. Oh, thank you, Ryan. Yeah. With that, that bid came back in your bid tabs that are in your council packet. That particular product priced out at $42,900. That's within our budget of $45,000 that we had. And we're asking for your approval to move forward with this. I do have, again, Mr. Melton here in crowd. If you guys have any specific technical questions, other than that, I'd stand for any questions as well.
Councilmember Anderson.
There's a 10-year warranty carried with it. What is the typical lifespan outside of the warranty itself? What is the typical lifespan of this product? For historical data, how long do you see it lasting?
Typically, a roof like this, where we put a 10-year warranty on it, it'll last 12 to 15 years. The good thing about this type of a system, it's renewable, what means you can clean it again and you can put another coat on it and probably get another 10 years out of it. So it's an extendable. You don't have to take it to the landfill, dump it, and start over.
And what, if you happen to have any data, obviously we can't hold you to that, but what percentage of the cost of the product we're putting on would a reapplication be to give us another 10 years? Is it 50% of what that?
Well, if you go back to the last 10 years, what happened the last 2 years, it could be almost double, but technically, normally it would be about 40 to 60% of the initial cost, because you could probably get by with just one coat instead of two the next time.
You're not having to redo the entire product. You're just putting a
Overlay
sealer
on
coat
it,
over the top.
Similar
redo
to
it.
what you were talking about with the streets.
Yeah.
And I understand cost of materials is very volatile, so.
Yeah, it's gone. A lot of materials have gone. Some of them are almost impossible to get.
Part of the reason we had 3 options in there as well is like the silicone product has gone up quite a bit in price as well. So anyways.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Motion.
I make
Oh.
a motion to accept bid option 2 for waterproofing services for the public safety building. Road.
You gotta make it.
LLC in the amount of $42,900 authorized the mayor to sign.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'm not sure I want to let you talk. Councilmember Wilson.
I'm going to get a big easy button down here to push. Big buzzer. Mr. Melton, so real quick, you talked about one layer being able to be put on that. Is that the only layer that can be laid on that, or and at that point in time, does it have to be stripped down and then redone completely, or how many layers can be put on a roof like this?
We have resurfaced multiple roofs multiple times, so it could be done multiple times. And normally what's going to happen is it's going to have some weak spots we're going to have to touch up. You can put an overlay on it, and you can do this 2 or 3 times, but you could put 2 layers on if you wanted. I don't see the benefit, even though I'd make more money, I don't see the benefit for you as a city to spend the money to put 2 layers on the next time, because you've already got the good base to go with. Because you've got a good, it's modified bitumen, it's what's on there now, and it makes a great base for this type of a system.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor. and your the piece is up here on the end there, Neil. The missing piece. Never a dull moment. Where were we? Oh, yes. So, all in favor, raise your hands. Okay, motion approved.
Thank you.
Get me confused where we're at. All right. All right, item F, discussion regarding the repeal and replace of golf cart ordinance. Who's going to get up and start this?
I think we're both doing this.
Okay.
So we'd had a request to revisit our golf cart ordinance rather than redoing the ordinance ourselves now. We thought it would be better to come to the council and have a discussion tonight, and then maybe rewrite the ordinance and make some adjustments. So I think we just want to start off with ideas.
Yeah. You want to start with Councilmember Bass? You had brought this up a little bit. I don't know if you had something to kind of start with, or Mayor. I'll kind of leave it up to you. But we really, like what Chief said, we want to have open discussion kind of tonight, and then come back with some good ideas. And so we're not sitting there trying to shove something down your throats that's not going to work. So wanted to have a open dialogue. So I'll kind of turn it over to either the Mayor or Councilman Bass, and be here to assist in anything.
All right, Councilmember Bass, I was going to make you lead it off anyhow.
So I've had quite a few residents approach me about this topic, and so I promised I'd bring it forward and see if there was something we could do. I think there's a lot of communities around us. There's the list that you provided us. I think a couple other cities, Inman, Halstead, Belle Plaine, possibly Marion is some more closer to us.
Yeah, I just grabbed just a few offline.
Right.
I mean, just kind of 15 and Cheney, just because we have a Cheney resident here.
I'm actually kind of
so yeah.
surprised by some of these with their population. Some of them are rather large.
I was too.
Right.
I was really surprised. I didn't realize that Shawnee and Lenexa and Salina did too.
Yeah.
And Derby's a little unique, and we could talk about that. But yeah, some of the larger cities is really if you had 25 mile an hour or under is kind of the
Right.
streets where ours is 30. But
And I think there's a lot of them already doing it. So if we can somehow draft an ordinance that would bring people in line with the law as well as make it even more safe, blinkers and headlights and brake lights. There's kits that you can get for them to make them a little bit more safer. Seat belts is another option. So there's things that you can do to make it safer that I would like to see put in there. Just some safety issues. And I think it's the Meridian. I think that's just a bad idea going up and down Meridian. I think that's an accident waiting to happen, but more of your side streets, I would hope would be a little bit more reasonable.
One of the things that helps maybe on Meridian, and it was one of the ideas, Meridian was probably one of the ideas behind the original ordinance, is says in there when allows or safety allows there to drive as far right on the roadside as possible, which allows vehicles. That's going to be to ban totally, maybe crossing. To ban totally for Meridian is going to make it difficult for us to enforce.
I think crossings is a decent idea. I think you have some of those golf carts that go really slow. Some of those don't. They come from the factory going like 10. I think I had one at my last house, and I think it went like 11 miles an hour. And so going down Meridian, I think that's holding up some traffic. And of course, you can't go to the side, but you're only limited in so much room. But crossing, I think, would be a lot better option.
Councilmember Kerstetter?
First thought is, I don't want to take this ordinance away because of a few bad apples. I've seen some people that drive through the baseball fields. Stop doing that. If you're watching, stop doing that. I doubt you're watching, but okay. To piggyback off of Councilmember Bass's.
Could be one or two.
I'm not sure adding the kits for the safe, like turn signals and stuff like that would be. I don't know if that would be a great idea. Brake lights okay, but putting more stipulations on some of these is.
Depends on which direction you want to go. Currently, they're not allowed to run between sunset and sunrise. And so doing that, and maybe not a lot of people today remember the hand signals from before, but when it's daylight and you can do the hand signals and they can be seen, that's okay. Should council wish to have them driven between sunset and sunrise, then absolutely I would agree that headlights. I've looked in researched some of the golf carts that are available on the market, and some of them do come with some really bright LED lights, and they're nice and pretty comparative to some of the small cars on the road. But then again, like you said, with a 10 mile an hour, some of them with the smaller batteries, even if they did have lights, they probably wouldn't be that visible.
Can I? Okay. So safety is a big thing. So how in Meridian's probably the worst road to be on. I get that. Is there a way we could encourage alternate routes, like using Main Street or Fifth Street, even though there's certain areas that are narrower than Meridian is? And before you start, have you given any traffic citations for anything? Because right now I'm assuming that there's required to have the slow moving vehicle sign on the back of it somewhere.
They are the only, we've not given any citations.
Okay.
I think I remember maybe 2 calls since this ordinance was passed, and those both dealt with, they were in housing developments. They weren't on the main streets. they were in housing developments and they dealt with underage kids that were the parents had allowed to drive them, not knowing that you had to be a licensed driver to operate them on the city street. And in those two cases, we didn't issue citations. We chose education over citations, and we didn't have any more problems. So we've not had any citations.
That's good.
And we did include the, kind of the permits and the number in front of you there too. So, I mean, there's 2 and 17 were issued for golf carts, 3 and 18, 3 and 19, 2 and 20, 5 and 2021, and 1 so far this year. So, will this number just drastically jump off the screen? Well, a lot of people think that when you pass ATV, UTV, and I mean, the highest year we had 12. And so, there's going to be some, don't think that there's going to be a flood of, 1,000 all of a sudden coming in. That's just not something that I've seen. I've been a part of 3 communities that have adopted, freshly adopted, brand new to golf carts, ATV, UTV. And I think the most I've had in one city was maybe 25 total in 1 year. And we made it to where there's large, same size license plate. We made the number really large. And so if somebody had a problem with somebody driving, or, hey, there's, a 5-year-old drive, I mean, you can see the number, and then there's just a little tag, a little tab, just like, you have for your car that you put the year on, and then it's easier to kind of see. But
see, I guess I haven't seen that big of an issue except for the driving through the ball fields. That was
it'd be nice to have a big number on it that you could be like, hey,
well, if I
number
could run
17,
fast enough, I'd probably just go talk to them. But that was too far away, and I don't run.
One thing I'd point out that I would like to see in the ordinance as well is our current ordinance does require registration, and you see the numbers up there. And obviously, if you drive around the streets, you probably realize there are more golf carts than that operating on the streets. With the current ordinance, it makes it they have to be visible. The registration sticker, the stickers are not that easily seen as you're driving around in a car. And so Brent and I, as we had discussed this last week, we talked about those license plates, plastic license plate size, regular license plate size, plastic plate that would have a number on it. And also then we could, that would be like the first time purchase, or a one-time purchase, and then have colored stickers like you do your tags on your cars, so that my officers, it's easier for their eyes to find that big tag and be able to see if that vehicle or that golf cart is registered.
Councilmember Colbert.
Yeah, we have an ordinance here for golf carts, but most of you guys know that I'm a fanatic about ADA requirements. Is this going to apply to wheelchairs and motor scooters for the handicap?
For motorized wheelchairs?
Right.
No, this is separate. This describes the golf carts pretty specific, similar to the utility vehicles. That ordinance is separate because it's a different type of vehicle, and this would specifically describe that vehicle. It wouldn't. Those are separate.
how do those work here? I guess
They're not.
I'm not even sure. Somebody has a little rascal driving around with a big flag sticking out the back. Is that?
Yeah, no, that's not. It's not governed by our ordinance. That'd be similar to a wheelchair. I mean, we're not gonna.
Well, we got some wheelchairs now that's pretty fast.
They are, and I've seen those, and the little carts he's talking about. I've got to play on one time, and some of them are quite fast, but maybe as fast as the golf carts.
And some are a lot slower too. I figured
And
that out
so,
during the.
but no,
wall.
yeah, those are not. Those wouldn't be regulated by this ordinance.
Any
And as
other-
long as they're not out, they would fall under the same ordinances and laws as a pedestrian. So
Okay,
They're
I
doing
thought they were
something-
allowed to
if
be
they're doing
just written on
something
the
that,
sidewalk.
a pedestrian would not be allowed to do, then yeah.
I didn't want to bring up the sidewalks, Mayor,
Did that answer your question? Not really.
because What I'm looking at is, if I remember correctly, a couple years ago, we had a specific route for the golf carts to use to get to the golf cart.
No, they were allowed on any city street, but it had to be the most direct route to and from the golf course, and any street that was 30 mile an hour or slower. So they're not allowed on the 45 mile an hour areas, like out on 5th Street east of the police station, or on South Meridian down south of the chiropractor's office.
Okay, now
They can do any other city street. It has to be it's supposed to be the most direct route to and from.
okay, and with all the building we got in and some of the new people come in, they're going to bring golf carts in. So is the route, is that going to be a standard route, or will be, say, somebody on the east side of town has a golf cart, somebody on the west side of town has one, they're coming from all directions. But is that going to be possible with this, the way you got this worded?
What you're seeing there, council member, is the current ordinance that allows them to go the most direct route now. What we're talking about tonight is, and that we're wanting input from the council, is to maybe change this ordinance. Councilmember Bass was requested by some of his constituents to look at this or address this. And so if council wishes, and we'll bring back a different ordinance, and then if you were to pass it, then, yes, it could change. And it could be anything right now. I mean, that's what we're wanting to hear from you tonight, your input.
And probably the simplest way, to change it, Lloyd, was just to strike the first sentence.
Yeah, that's what, when Brent and I talked about it, I think simply taking out, let me scroll up, Barry. Taking out the first part of that sentence, for the purpose of driving the most direct route to the Valley Center, Kansas golf cart, or golf course only. If we simply struck that, there's some additions, and that's part of what we wanted to discuss now or tonight, such as not crossing Meridian. I mean, we could easily add that in there, or crossing
Just
Meridian,
crossing.
but not driving up and down Meridian. I think Brent's idea with the plastic tags make it a whole lot easier for us to make sure that these vehicles are registered with the city. And the purpose for that, the registration fee, as you see in there, is really inexpensive. The real purpose behind the registration is that, we know they have insurance, and because they have to show proof of insurance to get that registration. And if we're going to allow them to operate on the streets as a vehicle, they have to follow the similar or the same laws that other vehicles follow. That helps us know that they're insured. Should an accident happen.
And they sign off knowing that they, read and understand the policy and stipulations to have.
We could add in the seat belts and the lights, should council want that. I know not all of them have seat belts. They're slower moving vehicles. I think some of the newer ones I saw, they're putting them in there now.
One city I was in, you had to have a bicycle or a safety flag, that extended no less than 5 feet from the ground. So then you flag coming down the road. Every city kind of does it differently. There's some, when I was reviewing this, there's some that do allow them on certain size sidewalks. Since they are, 4 foot wide, they can go down, a lot of times they say, 8 foot wide path or larger. So then you're not, taking out certain areas of the community that they don't have a roadway that's 30 miles an hour, 25 or less to get to the golf course, or to get to Sonic, or down to one of our businesses down here in the heart of the community. So it's really up to you all. That's why we want to have a discussion about it, to kind of get a flavor of what you're all thinking.
I would like to point out real quick also to Councilmember Bass.
he's like his board's lit up.
I
Shut up.
I apologize. I don't want to forget this point. When it comes to the seat belts and the things like that, the lights, we can absolutely require that in the ordinance. Also, this ordinance currently provides that, they have to follow the same laws as other motor vehicles on the road. So if that vehicle is manufactured with seat belts, the laws apply just like it would a car. They have to wear them. The front seat would have to wear them, and then any child in there would have to wear the seat belt as well, even if they're in the back seat.
Or the booster seat.
Yes.
Or car seat.
So those same laws would apply to the golf carts if they're manufactured with it.
Councilmember Bass.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, if there is an ordinance that passes, I don't want to make your job harder. So, is this something that can be revisited if we are seeing problems? Let's say it does get passed, we can revisit it down the road. Because again, I don't want to make anyone's job harder, so.
All of our ordinances are able to be looked at and reviewed at the discretion of you all as the governing body.
So good point was the neighborhoods that can't reach Valley, the heart of Valley on 30-mile-an-hour roads.
Mine being one of them. Yeah, absolutely.
For instance, your neighborhood.
Yep.
If there is an 8-foot sidewalk, can we make it where they can drive down that large sidewalk so they can reach? That way we're not alienating anyone within our city limits.
Yeah, absolutely can. You put it in there so where it's 8 foot or wider.
8 foot or wider.
If you look at all the sidewalks and trails that we're putting in place throughout the entire community, there's not one that's going to be less than 10 foot wide. So that's a very common thing as well.
Okay. And then, again, seatbelts might be overkill, but I don't know, Heather Fellows wrote a piece in the Ark Valley News, I think it was last week or the week before, and she really did a good job kind of painting a picture of how she sees using golf carts in this community with her family and her kids. So I urge you to read that that piece or editorial or article. But going to Fall Fest or going to a football game and driving it to and from. So I would like to see, at least if you drive it at night, if that's something that is possible, that there would be lights, at least in that instance. So if you were driving during the day, you don't have lights, then you wouldn't be able to drive it at night. So.
I think I saw that in one of the cities here. Is they had just like you said, it was against the law to operate them between sunset and sunrise unless they were equipped with or manufactured with lights, including brake lights and turn signals.
That was the thing that I saw in something was the word manufactured, which I wasn't familiar with.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
The tag idea, I'm not totally opposed to it. Where would they put it? Because we don't want to, I've only been in it's been a long time since I've been in a golf cart. So we don't want to impede anybody's view, like looking around or anything, or being able to put golf bags in the back of it. So is it something easy to do? Just like a kit or something?
Yeah, there's kits they could add. A lot of the newer ones are actually equipped with a place to put a regular license plate. Both utility vehicles and golf carts are already made like that because so many communities, I think, are allowing them now. But there's also kits to retrofit. As long as it's affixed to the back, I mean, I agree. I don't want it in there, to create a hindrance of their vision. They've come up with ways to attach the slow moving signs now. And so I'm certain that they could attach those as well.
A lot of times, you write in the ordinance it has to be in the rear. And so a lot of times, people zip tie it, to a place in the back.
Or zip tie flashlights at the front.
That's not manufactured.
No, but that would be a retrofit.
That would be
knowing the housing development that's going to be happening in the next year or two, we might want to, not that I really realize I'm saying this, consider the sidewalk issue. I don't really like the idea of them being on the sidewalk, but being in a 45-mile-an-hour zone is not a good idea either. Unless like on 5th Street between Fiddler's Creek and the public safety, there's a nice side
Trail.
You got a trail side. Well, I'm thinking of the shoulder. Thank you. But when there's not an area for a shoulder like Seneca, they don't have a lot of choices. So maybe a 10-foot wide sidewalk for future reference would be a good idea. But I don't like the idea of them being on sidewalks either. They're for bicycles and people walking and running. Somebody else.
Councilmember Anderson.
I think this comes down to safety. And when we talked about this, when we initially adopted this ordinance regarding the golf course, that was what really made us turn down anything else other than going to the golf course. And I know there's been a lot of interest since then because I've heard a lot of the same constituents that Councilmember Bass is talking about. I just don't want it to be a free for all. If you have a golf cart, you drive it wherever. I like to see some some rules and regulations put in place, and people have to abide by those, and they have to go through a certain number of hoops if they want to enjoy this. And that way it stays safe and there's some oversight on it. So I have no problem doing that. And I would like to see us be able to use them after, not necessarily just till dark, because of the amount of activities that we have where you could utilize it. Fall festival, community barbecue, baseball games in the summer, football games. So I'm for this. I just like to see us make sure we have our regulations and rules and everything in place.
Councilmember Colbert.
Yeah, I'm reading this thing again, just to make sure I understand it. One of the things caught my eye is we're talking about the license plate and registration issued to the person. So lending or permitting the use thereof. Can you explain what you want there?
That would be, if you're talking about in the ordinance with the registration sticker, that would be giving it to someone else to use on another golf cart. Just like your tag, you can't loan your tag to anybody else to use on another car. It would be the same with this. They can't loan it to anybody else to utilize temporarily on their golf cart. It's for that specific golf cart owned by that person.
So if a guy swaps from one cart to the next cart?
They would have to get it, just like they have to, or they're supposed to now when they get a registration. We have to inspect the golf cart. We would inspect it, and they could do that.
Okay.
They wouldn't have, I guess I should clarify. So if they have two golf carts, they're going to have to get a separate tag and registration. If they trade in their old golf cart for a new one, we would inspect that and just move that. They would have to show proof of insurance for that specific vehicle, and then the registration would just be moved over to that golf cart. But you couldn't just loan it to a friend.
No, because you have to put the VIN number and everything in there.
Okay, then I hate to keep going on this, but I'm going back to the electric wheelchairs. Are almost as fast as some of the golf carts that is remote controlled and all, or not remote controlled, but hand controlled. Is that individual going to have to purchase a license to operate it on the road?
No, it's not in the ordinance. Not unless council was to create an ordinance that required that. But I think we would have a lot of problems with that.
I'm sure you would.
So that's not part of the ordinance.
Okay.
It's a totally separate thing.
I just want to make sure and bring it up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Here's my take. First, I do not like the idea of after dark. And specifically for the reason that they mentioned about wanting to go to the football games, wanting to go to Fall Fest. You've been to the football games. What's the traffic like on these roads after a football game, right? That's my point. And then you've got a golf cart driving on Meridian at 20 miles an hour because then the traffic's backed up. The biggest issue I have with this whole thing is our streets aren't wide enough for a golf cart and a car at the same time. And it doesn't matter how far off to the right you are, and there's areas, Seneca for one, even though both Senecas are over the 30 mile an hour, but Main Street for one, right here, the tracks, there's no way to get a car around a golf cart without passing. There's no way for the golf cart to be off to the side. That is my biggest concern. I don't care that they're on the street. I just know that they don't move as fast as cars, and it's you're not seat belted. A car hits a golf cart, those people are probably done. It's that simple. And there's too many idiot drivers out there, and anybody that may have ever rode a motorcycle should probably know how many idiot drivers are out in the world that aren't going to care that they're in a golf cart. They're going to try to pass them. It's just not. The only reason we went with the ordinance we did is because the golf course didn't offer golf carts. So that's why we did that. I get that people want to do that, but that's why I can't. In these bigger cities, these roads all have plenty of room. And I don't know what those ordinances were. I really didn't pay attention. I was really looking at more of the ordinances within the same population range as we do. But I just don't think it's a good thing. But again, this is an item for if we want them to bring back an ordinance or not. But those are my strictest concerns. And I don't like the idea of doing it at night, because you not only at night, you got the kids out driving. It is just, again, they can't do the speed limit. They can't do 30 miles an hour. It maintained 30 miles an hour. And I did look up couple golf cart places, and the gas carts may get there. The electric carts usually won't get there. I didn't have a chance to go over and talk to the golf cart place over here. I wanted to. I did not have that chance. I might still be able to. I'm still going to go over there and talk to them. But that's my biggest problem right there. So, Councilmember Kerstetter.
Right now, I'm in favor of leaving this alone for right now. It's just, since we're discussion only, that's my 2 cents.
Right. And the discussion here is, do we want them to bring a consensus of, do we want them to bring back an ordinance that changes this law is really what we're talking about. Okay.
Right.
Councilmember Colbert.
I have to agree with you, Mayor. I don't know. To me, it's opening up too much to different motorized vehicles, not only besides the carts, your small buggies and everything else that's going to be affected by this, especially since you're going to require registration.
The utility vehicles, or is that what you're talking about, small buggies?
Right.
Those are currently require registration as well.
You can get those registered now.
Locally or state?
Locally.
Okay. No, we don't have any of those yet.
They're not allowed on state highways. They're only, they leave that up to the cities to.
I just feel that this needs to be a little more clear.
Councilmember Bass.
Yeah, so I was just going to touch on that because I have a UTV. It's not currently here, but I bring it back for sometimes. I haven't brought it back in probably 3 years, but I had it registered. I don't think you're going to see the influx of golf carts on the road like I think maybe some are imagining. I just don't think you're going to see people running out and spending $5 to $10 grand on a golf cart because they're not cheap. I mean, even used ones right now are running $3-4 grand. So I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue as maybe we think. I think there's going to be far less golf carts on the road than imagined. And I think if we did it right, I get the issue with Meridian, and I think that's why you don't allow it on Meridian. You keep it off Meridian. You can cross it, but you can't drive on it. So, and I do share some of these same concerns, especially with the slower golf carts. That's all I have.
So let's see. I need a consensus. So basically, the question that's going to be put to you, shall we have staff work on an ordinance to repeal and place the current ordinance to allow golf carts more than just to the golf course? Is that clear to everybody? Is that a simple enough, clear direction? All right. Just show hands of who would like that. We have 3, 4. Then I'm going to 3. Yeah, 3 hands, 4. And just to be official, those that decide against that, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you. At this time, we will just leave the ordinance as it is.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Approve the consent agenda. All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to staff reports. Mr. Schrack, I guess I still have, I know you all know your order, but I just say,
That's
I
all
have to say
right.
it for the record, I guess.
That's all right. Good evening again. Just a couple of brief updates. First, in case anyone missed it, since I did miss the last meeting, we have a very exciting announcement from the state last month in the fact that Main Street Valley Center was selected to be one of the new Kansas designated Main Street communities. So we did post that on our social media platforms, and we were very excited for that announcement. So again, thanks to everyone in this council. Thank you for your support. Your continued support of Main Street Valley Center. We're looking forward to this next era of growth for Main Street Valley Center as we continue to work on further revitalizing our historic downtown. And then secondly, just an update on 145 North Meridian. This is the house that experienced a fire last fall. This property was recently sold. The new owner has obtained a demolition permit from the city and has started the cleanup process. There will be fencing as well as a dumpster placed on this property. So there to further enhance safety, there will be a fence. I haven't driven past there yet today, but if it's not up yet, it will be erected soon. So there will be a large fence that will help prevent anyone from going onto that property. The new owner is working on some site cleanup first, and then we'll demo the house. There are some personal possessions that are still in the house from the former owner. And so the new owner is working on negotiating getting those removed before demoing the house. So that will hopefully take place by mid-month. Again, the permit is good for 6 months, so they do have 6 months to do the work. However, the current owner's plan right now is to actually start taking down the house by mid-May. I'll stand for any questions regarding
Councilmember
this.
Kerster had one.
Yes.
Props for you and Main Street Valley Center for getting that done.
Thank you.
Yep.
So thank you.
Councilmember Wilson also has one.
Chief, do we have somebody that's going to be on site for whoever's entering that house for safety to retrieve those personal items? That house is not in any shape for anyone to be in there that's not of some caliber of getting into a house that's dilapidated like that.
Our personnel on site would probably add some sort of
Yeah, I don't, when you take on a task, you also take on liability for doing that. I thought real keen about having this over there. It does make a lot of sense, but if you don't take on a task, the law says, you have to assume the duties, so you have no liability. I guess I would question whether or not there's even a right to remove that property. It's been there so long, it could be deemed abandoned. No one can claim it. Is there an estate involved in handling that? That he bought it
It's
from?
strictly between the current property owner and the former property owner.
And I can tell you that somebody from that family has been in and out of that house quite a bit, even after it was sold.
Yes.
So I know somebody's going in and out of there, and it just may be they just don't have a chance to get whatever might be left. I honestly didn't think there was anything worth salvaging in there, but I wasn't in there to see it, so I don't know. But I do know that, and I'm not, like I said, I don't know who it is, but I've seen people in it going in and out of that, and I don't know if they were just trying to clean out the shed or whatever, but yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, I don't know what's left. Probably just looking for anything that may or not have been destroyed, any family property or heirlooms.
So, Mr. Arbuckle, then the responsibility falls on the current owner of the property then for any liability?
The living existing parties, they ought to just get together. and
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
decide how that's going to be resolved. But I do think, again, it could be deemed abandoned by this time. It's been 7 months, still in the same location and transferred.
Thanks, sir.
Sometimes less government is better.
Yeah, and he's being really nice about it. It's really what it is he just, he by all means could just go in there and bulldoze that thing right now. He owns it, so. Yep. Councilmember Colbert, I didn't forget about you.
No, I'm just curious. I was going to ask this question earlier or later anyhow. The grass around here is getting kind of high all around that house. And if there's anything to attract animals in this town, it's high grass.
I would say at this point, we'll treat this as a construction site, and it'd be safer probably to minimize the amount of people going onto that property, whether it be city staff or our contractor that handles tall grass abatement issues. I would say with demolition coming within the next, hopefully 2 weeks, that tall grass would be abated
Right.
as well.
I believe he's talking about the city in general.
Oh, I thought you were talking about that actual
I think he was
property.
talking about the city in general. He was, because he said he was going to save it for later for his
Okay.
time. So I think he just.
Well, I would remind council that our code enforcement officer and building inspector, Mr. Bill Andrews, is available. Should you have direct complaints, whether it's on a neighbor's property or just a concern in general, please call or email him. You can also submit something through the city's app in regards to the property. Any property that either has tall grass, trash, or any kind of nuisance, please let Bill know. Bill does have a specific route that he does drive throughout the week, but he's also, of course, doing building inspections as well. So he is working on those, and I know that he has a number of cases opened already for 2022. And then in regards to the demolition, he will be demolition, that site will be inspected after demolition is completed. So before anything, once it's done, that will be inspected to make sure that that is a safe site.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Owings.
Mayor, just real briefly, I wanted to take a moment and brag on a couple of employees of mine. They recently passed their aquatic facility operators certification. All 4 of my staff have that certification now, and these were the 2 newest employees that we hired back in October and here just recently in April, Eric Riffle and Nathaniel Adams. So real proud of that. It's a certification that goes again through the National Park and Rec Association, administered through the Kansas Park and Rec Association. So they just recently certified in April here. So down in.
Don't go anywhere. Councilmember Kerstetter.
Yes, sir.
Since we're getting the roof done on the public safety building, when was the last time the HVAC has been looked at? Because I'm just thinking of that roof's going to be breached. Getting that, if it's a roof unit, that
an
HVAC being worked on after a new roof is a potential for leaks.
There are some that are slated for replacement, and that is something that we could look into. I mean, this year, there's so
as long as we can afford it.
They're budgeted items
All
as
right,
well.
perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Stam.
On the certification for the 2 employees, does that affect their salary? Do they get an increase? Is it part of their training they're required to do, or is it a bonus that they're doing?
It's part of their training that they do. It's not really affecting their pay. Just
All right. Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Chief Newman.
Bragging on employees. I am proud of Sergeant Kirk and the award that he received earlier, as well as all the officers. And Chief Boston was right. We work well together and we often assist each other. And it's not really just with Park City and Valley Center. It's really, our whole area, especially up north here. We all rely on each other, and that's with the Sheriff's Department included. We assist them, they assist us, and that's both in police and fire department. And speaking of fire department, I had mentioned to council a while back that we sent a fire truck over to the Cottonwood Complex fire in Reno County. Well, that happened. And I just wanted to let you know the Chief Stephen Beer with the Hutchinson Fire Department sent a nice letter to the fire department here expressing his appreciation and assistance from our fire department and helping with that fire. And then last, I had included my first quarter report, and I'll stand for any questions on that.
Nope, don't see any. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I see. Go ahead. We're laughing at who's up next. Yes. We just, I think I
do my
noticed
best.
it. Well, I just noticed it and Brent just noticed it and Chris all at one time, but go ahead.
So in my status report, I did put in, I did attend the Equus beds and I'll do my best to try to answer questions on the data that I gave you. It's very high level and it's 2 hours and like 45 minutes that was spent on the elections, but I was elected to a 3-year board seat. So hopefully I'll be able to bring you some more detailed information from those board meetings. I did include a picture. Work has begun on the water tower. They had scaffolding up there. They did offer rides in that scaffolding, but quickly turned down. And on that subject, with all the inconveniences it's closing the brush piles caused, staff has went back and taken another look at this, as well as looking at some possible other sites. And what we have come up with is during the construction, we will open the brush pile on Saturdays and Sundays only, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Again, my apologies. Stand correct, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday both, and then close it during the week. And with that, there is a little piece of road that goes around the water tower that's usually used as an exit road. That will be blocked off at all times to keep them away from equipment and keep them out of the danger zone. Hopefully that will alleviate some of the problem.
I can't thank you enough for that. I know there was other council members that have probably heard about it. It's amazing what gets people riled up in this town. That's all I have to say is I also had heard, I mean, you know, and I thought about it too after I looked at my backyard where I trimmed some trees and saying, now what am I going to do? You know, so, but yes, it was amazing. So thank you very much. But Councilmember Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Thank staff for that because I had contacted you, had a couple of citizens that contacted me that were disappointed in our closure and I think lack of communication that they didn't see the ways that we put out that was going to be closed, and that happens. There's oversight, and they don't necessarily communicate the same ways. That is our brush and recycling chip pile is something that is unique to our community. There's not a lot around here that do that, and I think that's a bonus for living in Valley Center. And at this time of year, as I expressed to both of you, I think it's important that we have that open, especially with being spring cleanup time. So thank you all for going out of your way to find a way to open that up for our citizens.
Thank you, sir. Anything else?
I did. I did submit for a newsletter, so it will be in the newsletter. But we did have a new employee start, Aaron Kirchard. He's working out fantastic. He's got a wealth of information he brings with us, and he's excited about learning water. And hear more about him in the newsletter. Yeah, even that water. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I say it?
No.
All right, Mr. Shear. Mr. Arbuckle. Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just some information for you at our next meeting. It will be the financing meeting for all of our big projects coming up. So it'll be very finance heavy at our next meeting. But I did also want to mention in regards to the audit earlier, Sean did mention there was a recommendation. In the sake of full transparency, I just want to say there was in July last year with the Pearson Mill and Overlay in town, we just forgot to get the performance bond filled out from the contractor. And since that project was over $100,000, that is a requirement. Since then, last October, we did instate our new purchasing policy, which clearly lays out that requirement that is now to be followed at all times, and which was evident as the RFP tonight, very laid out in the RFP. So just in sake of full transparency, just wanted to mention that, kind of glossed over that earlier. It's a very quick item. And just want to stand for any questions if you have any questions on that.
Nope, see none. Thank you, sir. I think we'll move right along to governing body reports at this time. Mr. Clark.
That was 100% my fault on not getting that performance bond. So on me, not on Barry and his phenomenal staff. I want to thank him and Matt Kane, of course. Matt had one of his kids' program tonight, so that's why he wasn't back in the booth, but for their amazing job at getting everything prepared for the audit. I can honestly say this is the easiest auditing community I've ever been in. I don't have to do anything. Barry and his staff have everything ready to go and make all of our lives really easy when it comes to the audit. So want to thank them for all that hard work. And I only have one more thing, unless you were going to bring it up, or was I going to bring it up?
You might as well.
So the Daughters of the American Revolution are going to honor our very own Councilmember Ron Colbert. This will be coming up on Saturday, May 14th at our Valley Center Community Center. And this will be at 11 a.m. is going to be the ceremony, and it is for the Kansas State Daughters of the American Revolution Outstanding Veteran Volunteer of the Year Award. Is that right, Ron? Yep, that's correct. And so the information will be, of course, on all of our social media. It's on Channel 7, running on our slideshow, but wanted to make sure that everybody knows that our very own Councilmember Ron Colbert will be receiving that public recognition and ceremony. Again, that's Saturday, May 14th at 11 a.m. at the Community Center. I have nothing else. Just a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Move along to governing body reports. I have nothing more. Councilmember Stamm.
I was hoping the little train whistle guy would stay. I looked up the population of Shawnee, and it's a 65,000 population town. They got a little bigger budget than what we have. That's it.
Councilmember Evans.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Bass.
I think I've talked enough tonight. I will say that, maybe next year we approach that same topic again, and hopefully I'll come armed with more statistics on the safety side. That's it.
Councilman Anderson.
I just want to echo the appreciation for Mr. Smith and Mr. Kane and their staff for all their work. I've been on council for almost 10 years. Yeah, almost 10 years. And they continue to strive to get better and better. And they've always done a good job, and they continue to do a great job and strive for that. So thank you very much for all your work. And although I will never share your excitement for numbers, but thank you.
You're missing out.
I don't think so. Councilmember Gregory.
Well, congratulations to Mr. Colbert and Mr. Kirk. I do want to say that on May 14th, when Mr. Colbert will be recognized, we also have a Sedgwick County Association of Cities meeting at 8:30 in Mays at Mays City Hall. So if you can do both, that'd be great.
Means he's going to be late for his own party?
Yeah. He's already told him.
Yeah, I already talked to him.
All right. Councilmember Kerstetter.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilson.
I'm good, sir.
Last, but certainly not least, Councilmember Colbert.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank what you guys do. And also to Captain Kirk.
Captain.
I
Wow,
just
he just got
promoted him.
promoted. Congratulations, JC.
He'll go for it, right? Congratulations on your award on there. You deserve it. The other thing is, if there's no other business before the council, I'll make a motion the meeting be adjourned.
Second.
A motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned.